I'm 82 now, and I've learned a lot about life, but there is one decision I deeply regret: moving into a nursing home. At the time, it seemed like the right choice. My family encouraged it, assuring me I'd have all the care and comfort I needed. I believed them, but as soon as I arrived, I realized reality was nothing like what I had imagined. Many of you might be considering this option, whether for yourself or a loved one. You may feel it's the safest decision, or you've been told it will make life easier. But before you take that step, I want to share 6 things I wish someone had told me beforehand. Life in a nursing home isn't just about convenience. It changes everything. And once you move in, getting out isn't as simple as you might think. Stay with me until the end. Some of these lessons might surprise you. If you know someone weighing this choice, this video could be exactly what they need to hear before making such a life-changing decision. Regret 1. Losing my independence. The biggest shock after moving in wasn't the small room, the set meal times, or even the unfamiliar faces. It was the realization that I'd lost control over my own life. Before, I set my own routines. I decided when to wake up, when to eat, and how to spend my day. I could take a walk whenever I wanted, cook my own meals, or simply sit quietly in my favorite chair with a book. But in the nursing home, my time was no longer my own. Everything ran on someone else's schedule. Breakfast arrived at a fixed hour, whether I was hungry or not. Lights out came regardless of how awake I felt. And if I wanted to take a walk outside, I needed permission, and often had to wait for assistance. Simple decisions like what to eat or what to wear felt like privileges instead of basic rights. I remember my first morning that I reached for the book I was reading at home. But instead of familiar surroundings, I found sterile walls and a bed I hadn't chosen. That's when it hit me. This wasn't my home anymore. And the hardest part, once you give up your independence, getting it back feels nearly impossible. You learn to fit into their system, but in the process, you start losing yourself. If you're considering a nursing home, ask yourself, are you ready to give up the small freedoms that make your life yours? Because once they're gone, you'll miss them more than you ever imagined. Regret 2. Feeling forgotten. One of the hardest truths about nursing home life is realizing that the world outside keeps moving without you. When I first arrived, my family promised to visit often, and for a while they did. My daughter came every week. My grandchildren dropped by on weekends, and I felt connected to my old life. But as the months passed, visits became phone calls, and phone calls became rare. Holidays were the hardest. Everyone promised they'd come, but last-minute changes always got in the way. Suddenly, I found myself sitting alone in the common room, watching other residents stare at the door, hoping today would be the day someone remembered them. It wasn't that my family stopped loving me. Life simply got busy. When you're not around every day, it's easy for people to assume you're fine, that you're adjusting, that you don't need much attention. But the longer you stay, the easier it is for people to forget just how much you still need them. I remember one evening, holding my phone and debating whether to call my son. I didn't want to be a burden, or remind him I was waiting for a visit that might never come. That's when it hit me. This was my new reality, watching the days go by, hoping someone would remember I'm here. If you're thinking about moving into a nursing home, ask yourself, are you prepared for the loneliness? Because no matter how much your family loves you, once you're out of sight, it's easier than you think to slip out of mind. Regret 3. Losing my sense of purpose. When I moved in, I thought I was just changing where I lived. I didn't realize I was changing why I lived. At home, I had responsibilities and routines: watering plants, making my own coffee, tidying my space. Those small tasks gave me purpose and a reason to get up each morning. In the nursing home, those rituals disappeared. Meals were made for me, cleaning was done by someone else, and the plants I once cared for were gone. At first, I told myself it would be nice to finally relax. No chores, no responsibilities, just rest. But after a few weeks, the days felt long and empty. I saw it in other residents too. People who'd once been full of energy now spent their days staring into space. There was an 84-year-old carpenter named George. Back home, he was always fixing things and building projects in his garage. Here, There were no tools, no projects, nothing for him to create. One day he told me, "I feel useless," and I knew exactly what he meant. When you no longer have something to care for or work toward, life starts to lose its meaning. Your mind slows down, your body follows, and before long, you feel like just another resident in a place where time moves, but nothing really changes. If you're considering a nursing home, ask yourself, what gives your life meaning? Once you move in, finding purpose isn't as simple as filling your time. It's about holding on to the things that make you feel alive. Regret for declining health faster than expected. Before I moved in, I was doing well for my age. I took walks, cooked my own meals, and even managed light morning stretches. But once I arrived, my routines faded away. Meals arrived at my door, and if I needed something, I just pressed a button. What I didn't realize was that the less I did for myself, the weaker I became. I stopped moving as much. My legs grew stiffer, and getting up from a chair began to feel like a chore. The muscles I'd spent years maintaining vanished faster than I ever expected. It happened to others too. People who walked in on their own 2 feet ended up in wheelchairs. Those who were once independent suddenly needed help with tasks they'd never struggled with before. I watched Alice, an 81-year-old neighbor who insisted she wouldn't slow down because of a number. But after a few months, she swapped her walks for a walker, then a wheelchair. She looked at me and said, "I don't know when it happened, but I feel like I aged 10 years in just a few months." That's exactly what happens when you stop using your body. You start losing it. If I had known how quickly I'd lose my strength, I would have fought harder to stay active, to push myself even on days I didn't feel like it. If you're considering a nursing home, ask yourself, will you still have the motivation to keep your body strong when everything is set up to make life effortless? Because once you slow down, getting back up isn't as easy as you think. Regret 5. Losing privacy and dignity at home. I had my own space. I could close my bedroom door, sit in silence, and do things on my own terms. In the nursing home, privacy is a luxury you rarely get to keep. From the moment I arrived, I felt like I was constantly being watched, staff coming in and out, scheduled room checks, and shared spaces where you're rarely alone. Even simple tasks like dressing or using the bathroom often required assistance. I know the staff were just doing their jobs, but it's hard to accept help with things you've done independently your entire life. I remember asking, "May I take a shower?" and waiting while someone had to come help. Pressing the call button for the restroom sometimes meant waiting longer than I wanted. Meal choices were limited. If I didn't like what was on the menu, too bad. And then there's the issue of roommates. Not everyone gets a private room. Sharing a space with someone you didn't choose can be frustrating. I was lucky to have a kind roommate, but others weren't so fortunate. Some had roommates who were loud, unclean, or even had cognitive issues that made sleep nearly impossible. No matter how much you tried to make your room feel like home, it's never truly yours. Dignity is hard to lose, and I didn't realize how much of mine I'd have to surrender until I was already there. When people knock but don't wait for an answer, when you're spoken to like a patient instead of a person, when your daily routines are dictated by someone else's schedule, you start feeling less like yourself and more like another name on a list. If you're considering a nursing home, ask yourself, are you prepared to give up the privacy and control you've had your entire life? Because once it's gone, it's hard to get back. Regret 6. Realizing it's harder to leave than you think. When I first moved in, I told myself it was temporary. I thought I'd try it out, and if I didn't like it, I'd go home. What I didn't realize was how hard it would be to leave. At first, it seemed simple. If I don't like it, I'll just go back home. But home wasn't the same anymore. My house sat empty, and maintaining it from a distance became difficult. My children had already started making changes, selling things they thought I wouldn't need, even considering renting the place out. When I mentioned moving back, they hesitated. "Are you sure you can manage on your own? Wouldn't it be safer to stay?" they asked. And then there was my physical decline. After months of not cooking, cleaning, or walking far, I wasn't as strong as I used to be. The independence I once had started slipping away, making the idea of moving back home more daunting than I ever imagined. I wasn't confident I could live alone again, and that fear kept me stuck. I met others who'd had the same experience, people who tried nursing home life briefly, only to find they couldn't go back. Some even lost the option entirely once their home was sold or their savings drained by the cost of care. That's the part nobody tells you. Moving in feels reversible, but for most, it isn't. The nursing home becomes your whole world, and before you know it, life outside feels like a distant memory. If you're considering a nursing home, ask yourself, are you prepared for the possibility that leaving won't be as simple as you expect? Once you settle in, the barriers financial, physical, and emotional can be much harder to overcome than you'd ever imagine. Final thoughts. Looking back, I don't regret growing older, but I do regret believing a nursing home was my only option. I walked in expecting comfort, safety, and a better quality of life. Instead, I found a world that slowly took away my independence, my privacy, my purpose, and even my sense of self. Does this mean nursing homes are all bad? Not necessarily. Some people genuinely need the level of care they provide. But before you make that decision, think carefully about what you're giving up. Once you move in, life will never be the same. If I could do it over, I would have fought harder to stay in my own home, explored more ways to get help without sacrificing my freedom, and made sure I truly needed that level of care before making such a permanent move. If you're facing this decision, I hope you take the time to ask yourself, is this truly what's best for me? Or is it just what seems easiest right now? The life you have today, your routines, your independence, your choices is worth holding on to for as long as you can. Thank you for joining me today. I'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment below and share one thing you learned and how you plan to use it in your life. Your thoughts are important, and reading your comments gives me great encouragement. If you found this video helpful, please like, subscribe, and share. Your support helps us continue creating content to inform and inspire you. Thanks for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.